This time on Psychic Investigators. A wealthy businesswoman vanishes on a shopping trip to Tucson.
We've seen a number of homicides, robberies, kidnappings.
Is it kidnapping or something else? The police have their suspicions, but no proof.
He was tall and handsome. He could talk snow off a snowflake, and he took over her life.
A psychic warns the police to act fast.
I just got a really, really bad feeling.
Or the truth could stay buried forever. Tucson, Arizona, 70 miles from the Mexican border, a city shaped by the surrounding desert. A dramatic backdrop to the story that was about to unfold on December 13th, 2004. At 6 p.m., 67-year-old Todd Benderly frantically approaches the security desk at Parkplace Mall. His partner is missing. He tells the guards he dropped Loretta Bowers off at Dillard's department store at 2 o'clock and arranged to pick her up at 4. He's been looking for her for the last 2 hours. The police are called, and Detective Fabian Pacheco is put in charge of the case.
Tucson, unfortunately, has seen its fair share of homicides, robberies, kidnappings. We do take each and every one of those investigations seriously.
Immediately, Pacheco recognizes the name of the missing woman. Loretta Bowers and her daughter Terry own a successful chain of furniture stores. Their commercials have been on the air for 20 years.
Thanks to you and Ma, Terry's consignment furniture has expanded again.
There's a beautiful Bernhardt sofa, and you saved $1,400.
Police kick the search into high gear.
They had searched all of the Dillard store to include the Parkplace Mall, the surrounding neighborhoods, without any success.
At first, Pacheco wonders if Loretta may have been abducted for ransom. After all, she is a high-profile millionaire.
Todd Benderly made some indications regarding a possibility of Loretta being kidnapped by some individuals in a white van. And this information further heightened our response to this investigation.
Todd calls Loretta's daughter in Phoenix.
I jumped in my car and drove down to Tucson in 45 minutes, which is normally about an hour and a half. I just remember feeling very frantic. The fear of her being kidnapped was probably the worst for me. I started getting hold of all of the local newspaper because I'd been on the news a lot. And I got pictures of her off of Todd's computer, and we started making posters right away.
Terry and Loretta were like Arizona's success story. We had watched them grow up on television. They started their business together, the consignment business. They were in our living rooms for 20 years.
My mother was a very smart lady. She was very attractive, very talented, full of life.
For 18 years, Loretta has shared that life with Todd Benderly. The story Todd tells police is that they left Tempe, the Phoenix suburb where they live, that morning for a 5-day vacation. They checked into the Residence Inn in Tucson at 12:30 p.m. and went to the mall at 2 o'clock. Police check mall security cameras and make a startling discovery.
We saw that there was no Loretta to be found anywhere within that video.
Does that mean there's something wrong with Todd's story? Todd said he searched for Loretta in the mall for 2 hours.
The video surveillance actually shows them coming into the Dillard's department store and almost immediately going straight to the customer service counter and reporting her as a missing person.
Police get a search warrant for Todd's hotel room and ask Terry to look through her mother's belongings.
There was a lot of stuff all over the bed that he had taken down, guns and ammunition taken from my mother's house. There was a lot of valuables there. But I think probably the most crucial moment was when I saw the jewelry. That probably was the first moment where I thought this wasn't just kidnapping, this was something else.
But what? Police search his vehicle and make an incriminating find. A shovel and a pickaxe.
Those are red flags right away, especially looking at these tools that look like they have dirt and dust on them like they've been used.
Detective Pacheco contacts the police in Tempe. They get a warrant to search Ta and Loretta's home. And in the garage, another disturbing find. Detective Trent Luckow is with the Tempe police.
They found a van parked there, and in the back of the van they found a purse, and inside that purse there were credit cards and a checkbook and ID that all came back to Loretta Bowers.
The purse, the pickaxe, the valuables, it all points to foul play.
Based on evidence that we had, we were confident that Loretta had never made it to Tucson.
Tucson police bring Ta in for questioning. He's defensive and, curiously, unconcerned about his missing partner.
You need to respect the fact that I'm trying to give you information in as clear a form as I can. I was not prepared to have to account minute for minute for my time.
Plain and simple is she never made it down here. This whole thing is gonna come down like a deck of cards.
The police believe they have a murder on their hands, but without a body, they cannot lay charges. They let Todd Benderly go and put him under surveillance. But Terry isn't content to just sit back and wait. She hears from a friend about a psychic who might be able to help.
Yes.
Maryanne Morgan is a medium with international credentials and her own radio program.
I'm clairvoyant, clairaudient, which means I talk to those on the other side. The capability of like jumping time with my mind, like look at everything on a TV screen and it plays out in front of me.
Terry calls Maryanne at her home in Bethany, Oklahoma.
It's never easy when you tell somebody that they love has crossed over, especially when they've been murdered.
Arizona businesswoman Loretta Bowers has been missing for 2 days when a psychic shares a devastating vision with the woman's daughter. Not only is she dead, she's been murdered.
I think that it took a little while for me to get through, and it was hard to hear those things.
Using her paranormal powers, Maryanne Morgan claims to see Loretta's last moments.
I kept getting all these visions of screaming and yelling in a fight. And then I saw somebody coming up from behind and putting something over somebody's head. Then I saw somebody suffocating, fighting to save their life. And the more she fought, the worse it was. And then eventually there was just no life at all.
Then the killer appears before the psychic.
When I started seeing this man, I described him in depth and in detail to Terry, and she said, yes, this is the person that her mother had been involved with for a very long time. And I said, Terry, you don't know this man. This man has lied to you. He's got all kinds of money problems, all kinds of financial things that he's created. He's a con artist. And she understood that. However, she really didn't want to believe it.
And there's another psychic bombshell for Terry.
I saw Loretta Bowers open the door and her be handed a set of papers, and I saw how angry she got, and I knew that the house was in foreclosure, and And this was something that she had no idea about.
I said, that's crazy. There's no way that my mom would let her house go into foreclosure. She loved her house.
Could the psychic be right? Terry decides to tell the police about the foreclosure.
We don't use psychics. We're more into the modern forensics, the DNA, the fingerprinting, certain other things that we can do as homicide detectives. But psychics, I'd never used one. I was skeptical.
And I said, you know, all I know is there seemed to be some things that she described that seemed to be accurate. And with us not having any leads coming in, I said it really couldn't hurt.
We did a financial investigation, and that's where we realized this home was in foreclosure. Nobody knew that. That was really astounding, and began to think, well, maybe the psychic could be of service.
In the meantime, the police continue to pull apart Todd's alibi. Todd says he and Loretta left Tempe at 10 a.m. and checked into their Tucson hotel at 12:30. However, the desk clerk says he checked in at 2:48, alone. And his credit card and bank receipts also tell a different story. At 11 a.m., he used his credit card to buy 2 baseball caps at the outlet mall. And at 1:15, he bought 2 sandwiches at the truck stop, just 4 miles down the highway.
We are now faced with a 2-hour block of time that we're trying to determine where exactly was he. And it's very important to us to account for that time.
Police think that during that time, Todd was busy burying Loretta's body somewhere in the Sonoran Desert.
We were headed in a direction to prosecute Todd Benderly for the murder of Loretta Bowers.
Then, an explosive turn of events. 1 week after Loretta's disappearance, the psychic has another revelation.
All of a sudden flashed before me this vision of Todd Benderly. And I just got a really, really bad feeling. Either this man's going to kill himself or he's going to try to escape.
The net is tightening. All the evidence of Loretta's disappearance points to Todd Benderly. The psychic immediately calls Detective Pacheco.
We were very concerned for Todd Benderly's welfare. Obviously, we don't want anyone to harm themselves. And most importantly, we still don't know where Loretta is. If something ever happens to Todd, the chances of finding Loretta are gone along with him.
At Maryanne's insistence, the police check up on Todd. He seems fine. The next day, Terry calls Todd several times, but he doesn't answer. In a panic, she contacts the police.
At that point, police probably need to go out there and make sure that he's okay and that he's fine, or that he had not fled. When police entered the house, they found Todd hanging from an extension cord in the garage.
All Todd Benderly left was a suicide note saying he has gone to join Loretta, but nothing about how she died or where her body is located.
What a coward. Not only did this man kill himself, he took all the clues with him on where Loretta was. He never said, here's what I did and here's where she is. This SOB went to hell not telling anybody where Loretta was.
The psychic was dead right about Todd's suicide. But can she help to find Loretta Bowers? Todd Benderly has taken the secret of Loretta Bowers' burial place with him to the grave.
knowing that he had just committed suicide, I lost all the hope of finding out really what happened, if he'd been the one that killed her, and where was she.
When I found out that Todd Benderly had committed suicide, I was thinking about what Maryanne had told me. I was thinking, what else could we have done? Once the main suspect is dead, there's nobody to prosecute. The case is closed. The only thing left in this investigation to do is to find the remains of Loretta.
But where is she? 3 weeks after her disappearance, the police are no closer to finding her body.
I needed to know what had happened. You know, how was she killed? Was she shot? Was she cut up? Had he bashed her? When you don't have how somebody died, it just makes you crazy.
Desperate, Terry invites psychic Maryanne Morgan to Tempe. Maybe she can see something the police have missed. They start in the place where Todd took his own life, the garage of Loretta and Todd's soon-to-be repossessed house.
We went out to the garage. A very, very cold entity came to be present with us. I said, Terry, Todd's here in the garage with us. And about that time, he jumped into my mind, and he started screaming. He says, she's in the desert. She's in the desert. I told you she's in the desert. It was just very powerful and overwhelming. I knew this was going to be very hard to tell Terry, but unfortunately, I saw her mother wrapped in plastic, almost mummified. And I saw her buried in a very shallow grave.
The desert, a likely place to dump a body. Police already suspect Todd has buried Loretta in the Sonoran, but the psychic sees specific, unique details.
I could see that there was blue. I felt like I was surrounded with blue. And then I heard children laughing. And I could see and I could hear children going around and around on a merry-go-round. So I thought, oh my gosh, that's going to be the biggest, one of the biggest keys to this is that she is not even 150 yards from this merry-go-round.
A merry-go-round, the color blue. Maryanne shares the details with the police, who have a lead of their own. Todd made a cell phone call around the time police think Loretta was buried. Detective Landon Rankin of the Pinal County Sheriff's Office led the search for Loretta Bowers.
Mr. Benderly's cell phone had pinged on a certain cell phone tower in central Arizona in our jurisdiction of Pinal County.
The cell phone records show Todd had made a phone call at 12:30 in the Sonoran Desert, 94 miles from the hotel in Tucson, where he told police he was. And he had made that call during the 2-hour time gap that he couldn't account for.
I believe it was his dentist had called, so Mr. Benderly opened up his cell phone, returned the phone call. So that basically put his footprint in our area.
The police think Todd was burying Loretta's body in this area of the desert. But even with hundreds of volunteers, they're looking for a needle in a vast haystack.
People who ask the question, how hard is it to find a body in the desert, have never been to the desert. The desert is so enormous. I mean, even with clues, you can't find a body in the desert.
6 months pass, and there's no sign of Loretta. With limited resources, the police halt the search. But Terry Bowersock refuses to give up. For the next few months, each Saturday, locals and tourists alike scour the desert for Loretta Bowersock's body.
Every day that I'd be out searching, I remember I would just think of her and just how important it was not to spend the rest of my life wondering. I wasn't about to let her stay in the desert. That wasn't going to happen. I was going to find her.
Terry was searching every day. I finally just had to tell her that it was not her karma to find the body, that hikers were going to be in the desert about a year later from the time that she disappeared, and that they would come upon the body.
In January 2006, just 150 feet from an abandoned motel, a family out hiking stumbles on a human skull. Dental records confirm these are the remains of Loretta Bowers.
The teeth that I had noticed had fillings. More specifically, was I saw some porcelain veneers on sort of her front teeth.
When I was told that she was finally found, it was like, oh, thank God. It was a relief to know, I could stop chasing. I did need to have closure. It was amazing when I drove out there. There was a blue motel. It's like when you got there, you went, how'd we not see this much blue somewhere? But we stopped just short of that, 5 miles, before that area.
An autopsy reveals the actual cause of death, asphyxiation by a plastic bag.
When I was first at scene and saw the plastic, I thought it might have been just skin. But we went to the autopsy and it saw that the plastic bag was completely over her head. It came full circle with Maryanne's prediction. It was exactly as she had said.
The police reconstruct Loretta's last hours alive. On December 13th, Loretta discovers the foreclosure notice on the house. At 3:33, she makes the first of 17 phone calls to the bank. They confirm her worst fears. Her partner of 18 years has been embezzling the mortgage payments. When she confronts Todd, he panics, fearing his web of lies is about to be exposed. He sneaks up behind her, places a plastic bag over her head, and suffocates her, just as the psychic predicted.
After being involved in this case, I can say that definitely I'm less skeptical of employing the services of a psychic.
I've never used a psychic until this, but the information she gave was pinpoint accurate. A psychic gives us insights that we don't have.
When this case came to a close and I got the phone call that they had found Loretta Bowers, it was just a sigh of relief that it was finally over.
Todd Benderly was never tried for the murder of Loretta Bowers. A dead man can't be put on trial.
I felt so bad that I hadn't done something, to rescue her. I hadn't taken her out of the house earlier. I've learned there's a lot of women out there that are lonely and desperate for love. And that, unfortunately, there's men that will take advantage of that. And so I would just simply say to women, if you feel like there's something wrong with the person you're with and you haven't checked them out, do.
This time on Psychic Investigators, a young woman vanishes without a word.
In the back of my mind, she was hitchhiking and somebody had gotten a hold of her.
The police think she's run away, but a psychic sees murder.
I feel it was a crime of passion.
The case goes cold for almost 30 years.
We thought that, something more could be done on the case. Let's take another look at it and see where it goes.
But can a psychic's visions crack a cold case from so long ago?
You really can't expect somebody that's been lying for 25 years to all of a sudden say, I did it.
Los Altos, California, in the foothills of the Santa Cruz Mountains. Once known for its orchards, by the late 1970s, it's become a bedroom community for Bay Area commuters.
It was a very quiet, calming place. It was affluent as it is today. The people who lived here cared greatly about their community.
Los Altos is a safe haven, a good place to raise a family, or so it seemed. On March 28, 1978, 17-year-old Laura Ann Byerly, a student at Los Altos High, vanishes without a trace. When she doesn't come home that night, her parents file a missing persons report. Police quickly decide Laura has run away, with good reason.
She had run away at least 6 times, and she had had problems with her parents. She would run away, she would disappear. She had been gone for several weeks, and then she would reappear, come back home. She'd always keep in contact with her friends, and then, come back into the household to make amends with her mom.
Mary Cressy has been Laura's best friend since the 8th grade.
Every time that she ran away, I was always the first person she'd go to. She ran away, but she always came right back.
Her parents, Erwin and Betty Byerly, are sure that this time she hasn't run away. Recently, she's been turning her life around.
She was rebuilding her relationship with her parents. She had decent friends and wanted to change.
But the police are certain that Laura has taken off, and her friends are hiding it.
So you guys saw her yesterday, and if you guys have seen her, you know her.
They questioned us about last time we had seen Laura. And they said, well, has she contacted you? And I said, no. I was like a sister to Laura. We stuck together through everything. We would take her parents' station wagon out, and we'd unhook the speedometer so they wouldn't know we were going somewhere. We would say we'd be in town going shopping, but actually we'd head Santa Cruz. She was just a social butterfly. She trusted people.
At the Byerly's insistence, police proceed with a routine missing persons investigation. They discover that the day she disappeared, Laura broke up with one young man, Scott Schultz, and made a date with another, John McFoland.
The day she had disappeared, she had gone to school that morning. She had the same class as this John McFoland in the morning. 2 witnesses say they saw her leaving, going into the parking lot area. She did not go to her second period class. She was never seen again.
The police question Laura's ex, Scott Schultz.
He tells the police that he was home and he never saw Laura. He thought she was going to hitchhike over to the house.
The police have no reason to doubt Scott Schultz. Laura is known to hitchhike. With no witnesses and no evidence of foul play, the investigation winds down. But there's still no sign of Laura, and her mother won't give up.
She didn't know why she would run away. She didn't know why she just disappeared. She had no idea what happened.
Betty felt in her heart something had gone wrong. I was the one that suggested to hire a psychic, and that's where Annette Martin came in.
Annette Martin is a well-respected California psychic who's helped to solve crimes for law enforcement agencies across the country, including the FBI. 10 days after her daughter's disappearance, Betty Byerly visits the psychic and provides her with a photograph of Laura.
I close my eyes and I take a couple of deep breaths, and immediately I begin to receive impressions from that photograph. Laura did not run away at all. The police are wrong.
Then, the psychic says something no mother wants to hear.
The most difficult thing in the world is to tell a mother that her child is dead.
"17-year-old Laura Byerly has gone missing from her Los Altos home. Desperate to find her daughter, Betty Byerly has met with a psychic. What she tells her is devastating.
My daughter's dead?
It feels that way.
Oh my God.
It feels that way.
Oh my God.
I'm not getting any impulses of life here. She's very cold. Very cold to me.
Then the psychic offers another striking revelation. She names the killer.
I saw a name, and the name was Scott. She goes, "That's her boyfriend." Then I saw that he had taken her to this place that was in the woods, and saw him driving down towards Santa Cruz. They were arguing and fighting. I saw him shaking her. I feel it was a crime of passion. And then I saw him bury her in a very shallow grave. Betty was in a state of shock. I had said that the police would not find her body, but I saw a hiker finding her body. And I said to Betty, have they spoken to this Scott? And she said, yes, they have.
Betty clings to the hope the psychic is wrong. But in her heart, she believes Laura is dead, murdered by her boyfriend, and buried in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
I remember sitting in her mom's living room and crying our eyes out together, going, no, it can't happen. It can't happen to her only daughter.
Laura's mother turns the tape over to the police and begs them to look more closely at Scott Schultz. She tells them that Laura and Scott have been dating for 6 months, that he's bad news, controlling and possessive, a dropout who's going nowhere.
With Scott, she seemed to be a different person. She would sit there and would clam up. I felt in my heart that she was almost afraid of him.
But Laura was moving away from her boyfriend. The morning she disappeared, she broke up with him in a long phone call Laura's mother describes to police.
The phone call started about 1:40 in the morning, and they talked for 4 hours. According to Laura, they talk about their relationship, how she's, no longer wants a relationship with him. He's very emotional. He cries on the phone several times related to them breaking up, and that she's going in a different direction. In the morning, she notices that Laura's crying, and Laura tells her, hey, I just broke up with Scott. I broke up with him on the phone. I feel bad that I didn't do it in person. And the mom just tells her, hey, don't worry about it. Just go to school. Things will get better.
It's the last time Betty Byerly sees her daughter alive. Despite the psychic's suspicions, the police still have nothing to link Scott to Laura's disappearance. The police have nothing on him and no reason to believe Laura has been murdered. However, they search a small section of the mountains where the psychic says Laura will be found. but they find nothing. Police set the case aside. Weeks and months go by with no news. Then, more than a year after Laura vanished, hikers in the Big Basin State Park make a grisly find.
April 1979, some hikers in the Santa Cruz Mountains going along a trail. Their dog goes off to the side, and he brings out what appears to be a bone. The people kind of look at it, and then they discover that, hey, this is a human mandible. They also find some clothing and some other items, and they gather all these items. So they go alert the ranger who then calls the police department. They recognize it as a crime scene.
The Santa Cruz County coroner concludes the young woman has been dead for at least a year. Her name is Laura Byerly. The police contact Mary Cressy, now living in Salem, Oregon.
They said that they'd like to fly in and interview me, and they would like to have me look at some items that belonged to Laura. I had to do this because her dad had died 6 months after Laura disappeared, and I don't think that her mom was able to handle the pressure. I had to identify her shoes. I had to identify her black polyester pants, and I had to identify her sheer flower top. That's all that was left. Her jewelry wasn't there, and Laura always wore jewelry. So I thought that was quite odd.
The Santa Cruz police join with Los Altos to investigate what is now considered a homicide. They re-interview witnesses, including Scott Schultz, but uncover no new leads.
The Los Altos detective re-interviews Scott at that time. In fact, at this time, it's the most thorough interview of Scott done by the Los Altos Police Department. But he's really never really taken on as a major suspect in this case. They can't tie him to the crime scene. They can't tie him to her disappearance. He's just kind of a player that really has never been identified. As far as they're concerned, she was a runaway.
Again, the case goes cold. In 1996, Betty Byerly dies in a house fire. With both her parents dead, it seems Laura's memory is dying too. But in 2005, nearly 30 years after she vanished, cold case investigator Detective Michael Shembry gets a call from Laura's old friend, Mary Cressy.
It was always in the back of my mind that there had to be an answer to this. And I said, you need to pursue it. You need to keep after them, and you need to make sure that this does not get closed again.
She felt at the time, in 1978, that the police department really hadn't done a thorough investigation. And she thought that if we reopened the case and started contacting people, maybe something could be done. And especially in this case, because there was really no family members alive, and there was really nobody else that was, kind of holding a torch to get this thing done. We read it, and we thought that, something more could be done on the case. Let's take another look at it and see where it goes.
One detail in Laura's file that catches the detective's eye is a reference to psychic Annette Martin. But the tape of the psychic's reading is missing.
Mike Shembry called me on the phone and said to me, I was just wondering if you would possibly have a copy of that tape. And I said, yes. I keep a copy of every single murder case.
A lot of these old cases, you'll find that the family has made contact with a psychic. It's not uncommon. If somebody has this ability, that's great. And in this case, it's been open for 25 years. It's certainly not going to hurt. Annette had specific information about the location of the body and what took place, and that information given at that time was not that far off base.
The psychic had predicted Laura's murder and how her body would be found. But will her visions help the police track the killer? It's been nearly 30 years since the remains of 17-year-old Laura Byerly were found in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Her killer has never been found. Cold case investigator Michael Shembri listens to the long-lost tape of a psychic reading.
God definitely has something to do with her disappearance. He's very sick.
In it, the psychic zeroes in on the boyfriend, Scott Schultz, who police eliminated as a suspect all those years ago.
So I wanted to talk to her to see if there was any other information or any other feelings that maybe I could take a look at or would point me in a direction where I would get other evidence that would really help in this case. When you're listening to a psychic statement and you're reading the psychic statement, you're still a police officer. So you know that you're just taking this information and you're going to take it and see if you can do anything with it. Will it provide me a witness? Will it give me a better look at the crime scene? Will it show me a different location where they could have been earlier? Or give me something that I didn't have before? So that's how I looked at her information. Because you realize this information is not admissible in court. You can't walk into court and say, the psychic said that Scott Schultz killed her, so therefore we rest our case.
The deeper Shembri digs, the more his suspicions match the psychic's.
There were several facts that just didn't make any sense. The fact that she had talked to him that morning for 4 hours. She had gone to school and she had made a date in her first period class with her new boyfriend, John McFolin. Then she had a hair appointment later on at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. To me, a young lady that had just made a date with her new boyfriend, that had a hair appointment, she wouldn't run away. She wouldn't disappear unless something specifically happened to her.
Shembri tracks down Scott Schultz, now 46, and a mechanic in Loveland, Colorado. Before interviewing Scott, the detective talks to Cheryl Schultz, his ex-wife. The story she tells him only serves to heighten his suspicions.
She talks about an incident in 1990 where she is going through his items. She finds this box in the back of one of his dressers. And inside the box, she finds this article about this girl that has disappeared and the bones being found in the Santa Cruz Mountains. She also finds a ring, and she finds a couple other items. And she kind of wonders, who is this? He's never talked to me about this, but obviously it's pretty important because he's kept the article. Eventually she asks him about this, and he just kind of blows it off, just saying it was an ex-girlfriend. So you have that information. It's like, why would he keep these items?
Re-interviewing everyone who gave statements originally finally pays off. A woman who was a friend of Scott's reveals to Shembri that 30 years ago, Scott's uncle owned a weekend home 8 miles from where Laura's body was found. Scott knew the area well.
When I saw that he had an uncle that lived on China Grade, then I knew I could tie him to the crime scene. And once I knew I could tie him to the crime scene, then I knew this case was over with. All I had to do was build it up. All I had to do was get the circumstantial evidence that would put it all together, and that would give you enough probable cause to arrest this guy.
The 4-hour phone call, the box of mementos, now the connection to the crime scene. The detective has enough for a warrant. August 23, 2006. Shembri searches Scott's Colorado home. He discovers Laura's rings, her photograph, and a news clipping. Crucial evidence. Shembri gives psychic Annette Martin a call.
Michael Shembri told me that he was going the next day to Colorado to arrest Scott. And I said, oh, wonderful. Finally, we're going to have closure on this case.
Scott Schultz is arrested for the first-degree murder of his high school girlfriend, almost 3 decades earlier.
They called me up and said that they had just arrested Scott Schultz for the murder of Laura Byerly. I'll never forget it. And I just burst out in tears and said, finally.
Brian Welsh is the DA who prosecuted the case.
This really was a classic case of all the circumstantial evidence, when looked at in its entirety, pointed to Scott Schultz and his guilt. But he had steadfastly denied killing Laura when he had been interviewed on a number of occasions by the investigators.
Scott Schultz is extradited to California, where he pleads no contest to a reduced charge of voluntary manslaughter.
Voluntary manslaughter in this case is referred to as a heat of passion crime. Under California law, a person can plead either guilty or no contest. In this case, he pled no contest. At the time he entered the plea, the court informed him that a no contest plea would be treated as a guilty plea.
By pleading no contest, Scott Schultz avoids the uncertain outcome of a jury trial, and the full details of how Laura died are never revealed. But the cold case investigator's best guess is that she and Scott argued, emotions ran high, and Scott killed her in a fit of rage, just as the psychic visualized all those years ago.
Some people have the ability to see things. I mean, as you get older, there's a lot of things that you really firmly disbelieve when you were younger that as you get older, you say, you know what, maybe that's possible.
Because he was a minor at the time, Scott Schultz is sentenced to just 2 years in prison.
I was saddened. Here, my best friend's gone, and all he got was 2 years. Where's justice? I feel in my heart that justice will be done, and he will eventually have to pay the price fully.
One thing is certain. Without the psychic insights of Annette Martin and the dogged determination of a cold case detective, the murder of Laura Ann Byerly may have remained unsolved forever.